Operators AMA. My name is Relentless. Today we're talking to Nick and Elsa from Unstoppable DeFi, the team building the next generation decentralized exchange with integrated margin trading, single-sided LP, instant fiat on and off ramp, and a mass adoption friendly wallet. Super excited to hear from you guys, talk about all the things you're building. So really appreciate you joining us today. Do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves, tell us your role, and then give us kind of a background on the team?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, thanks for having us. My name is Nick. I'm the founder of Unstoppable and also the lead dev. And with me today is Elsa, one of my co-founders and part of the core team. She's handling the marketing and community side of things. And the rest of the team, we couldn't let out of the basement today because we got a testnet launch coming up and there's still quite a bit of work to do. So today it's going to be Elsa and me here in the AMA. And we are happy to be here.
Yeah, very excited to have you. I mean, you guys are working on a huge project here, so I'm super excited to get into some of this. Just like the grand scope of this is crazy. When I found it and started looking through, and I was like, oh man, this is different than some of the other things that a lot of people are trying to do. I mean, you guys are tackling a huge problem or a bunch of huge problems all at once. So, all right. So, when did you start working on Unstoppable? And what's kind of been the progression of what you initially wanted to build when you came up with the idea to where you decided, hey, we need much more, and then shifted focus to what you're working on now?
I think Nick could answer that even better since he's the lead dev. He was also part of the reason why we turned to Unstoppable was we built by accident part of it and decided that it was going to be a lot more interesting than what we were originally thinking. So I think you will explain it better.
Yeah, sure. So we've been around for maybe half a year now. So we started late-ish last year with what's now Unstoppable. And initially, the two things that we always knew we kind of want to do and want to focus on is one, we wanted to make the access to DeFi and crypto easier, because that is just something that we ourselves have experienced for years now, and where we still think there's no really good solution yet. That if you want to get people like your family or your non-techie friends into crypto, when they ask you what the stuff is that you're talking about all the time, then it's still kind of hard, and there's still like private keys and seed phrases and wallets and backups, and everything is still kind of a bit complicated for normal people, at least. So one of the things that we just ran into ourselves again and again is, how do we get people that are interested but that are not maybe too technically competent or don't want to spend too much time and focus on educating themselves about how it currently works, and how can we basically lower this barrier of entry and get more people, give more people the chance to participate in this crypto and DeFi ecosystem that we all know is kind of very interesting and has a huge potential. And then the other thing that we wanted to focus on from the early days was we really want to build the best risk-reward products in the space. And that kind of ties into that first aspect, because once the people get into crypto, then what do they do? And how do we make sure that the new people coming in don't get rugged right away and don't fall into all the scams and all the shitty stuff that this space unfortunately also offers? And how can we provide products that are pretty safe, but still generate some interesting returns to justify people getting in and participating in this ecosystem? So that was kind of the original idea or goal that we had. But what we didn't have so much in the beginning was the clear way on how are we going to get there. And that kind of changed eventually when the FTX fiasco happened. And we started to ask ourselves the question, so why do even decentralization maxis like ourselves, why did we have accounts at FTX or at Binance or at centralized exchanges? And how come that there isn't really yet a real decentralized alternative that we are using and that allows us to not use the centralized exchanges anymore? And that was one of the things that we started to discuss internally. And then I was writing some code to experiment with some liquidation engine setups in a different context. And after a few hours, I realized that I had basically almost by accident built what is a margin trading DEX, basically, because you can borrow from one side and then you can swap the funds. And then there's a monitoring in place and it keeps track of it and executes those liquidations that I was experimenting with. And we realized, okay, if we now add a deposit and a withdraw function, then this is basically the foundation of what could be a decentralized exchange. And what was interesting for us at that point was that these two things came together. That we said, okay, we had these centralized exchanges, and we were still using them for some reason. But now we had the basics of a decentralized margin trading exchange, and it had some very interesting properties that a lot of the other DEXs in the space don't have. Like, for example, single-sided LPing without exposure to impermanent loss or without taking on the opposing side of the traders on the platform. And yeah, this is kind of how things started to fall into place for us. And we realized, wait a minute, this kind of still follows or could be the foundation of our original vision, making access easier by providing a decentralized exchange with a really good UX and easy access. And then also providing safe risk-reward products that will allow new people, but also crypto natives, of course, for example, to LP on the Unstoppable DEX without being exposed to impermanent loss, without taking on the risk of traders winning and LPs losing, and things like that. So that's kind of how things came together, and how we have now set ourselves the goal to make centralized exchanges obsolete and really build not just an alternative that can somewhat keep up, but really an alternative that is fully feature complete, that provides everything you can get on a centralized exchange, but then has all the added benefits of the decentralization on top. So that you don't need to trust a central entity anymore with your funds, and they don't end up rugging you or rugging the new people that we hope to bring into the space.
Yeah, very cool. It's funny how many things like almost or start on accident. You know, you're working on something else and then you like accidentally work your way into what you really want to work on, which is super cool. How those things tend to play out. So, all right, so without going into too much detail, because we're going to dive into like the features, do you want to go ahead and give like just a kind of high level overview of everything that Unstoppable is?
Yeah, sure. So basically what we are saying right now, or we are still trying to improve the wording, of course, and all the outside view of Unstoppable. But for now, we are saying we are more than a DEX, because like the word DEX is kind of overloaded these days. Some people, when they hear DEX, they think of something like Uniswap, where you can do like spot trading. Some other people think of something like GMX, where you can do margin trading. We really are planning to be more than a DEX, and we are on a mission to make centralized exchanges obsolete. So what we are trying to build is a full replacement for the centralized exchanges. So eventually we will have covered both the spot trading, margin trading, or leverage trading. We have integrated lending and borrowing and LPing for yield. We will have a corresponding mobile app or easy access from mobile devices. We plan to do a normie-friendly wallet that really allows people to get into crypto that currently find it too difficult or the barrier of entry is too high. And to be really feature complete, one of the things that we think is also still missing in the decentralized exchange area is the instant fiat on and off ramp. So overall, yeah, we have a few things planned, but the goal is really to ideally put the decentralized exchanges out of business and build a better decentralized alternative where people are in control of their funds, of their money, where they don't have to trust a central counterparty, and then expand from there, and not just establish ourselves in the current crypto community, but also really get more people in and give more people access to the space.
Yeah, very cool. All right, appreciate the rundown. All right, so we'll kind of dive into some of the features that you touched on there and get into that. All right, so first with the DEX, right? And I don't want to spend too terribly much time on the DEX, right? Because like you said, there's a lot of DEXs going on. There's kind of almost like a DEX war happening right now with all that are trying to get into that market. But there are a couple parts of this I want to talk about. Specifically, you guys are really talk about in your documentation and a lot of things trying to solve UI and UX problems, right? So what are the major problems that you've seen in other DEXs, and how are you guys aiming to solve those? Yeah, that's my question, really.
Yeah. We think that UX is still one of the things that in crypto in general and in DeFi in particular is still not really solved, and that basically starts at the very beginning when you set up your own wallet, your own account. You have to go through seed phrases and figure out a way how you back that up. Then you have to learn what private keys are and all of that stuff, and then on the next layer where we are talking about decentralized apps. A lot of the early apps and still a lot of the UIs and dApps that are out there are, well, let's say they can't compare to what normal people are used to from really good modern UI UX on different apps like Twitter or other apps that people are just used to. I think it probably comes down to the fact that in crypto there's just too many smart people still. And they are perfectly capable of setting up their own wallets and taking care of backups and private keys and of connecting to dApps or interacting with smart contracts directly through Etherscan and things like that. Sometimes they even enjoy that, but I think that is basically what kind of kept the UI UX part a bit behind the rest of what we see online on the internet or in modern phone apps. And this is basically where we say, okay, no, we should be able to provide at least the same, if not a better UI UX than all the other industries and spaces are able to offer. So yeah, we have set ourselves a goal that we say, okay, it should really be so simple and so intuitive that your parents and your non-tech friends are able to set up an account, to start some trading or do some investing or get some yield. And there shouldn't be these too complicated hurdles where people either end up being where it's too complicated and they abandon the entire thing, or where they might end up making a mistake. And as we all know, that can also be very expensive once it comes to self-custody. And this is basically where we have set ourselves the goal to provide a really simple and intuitive UX to give people access to the DeFi space and in particular the trading and investing part.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, ease of use is going to be, one of the biggest things in gaining mass adoption, making it attractive and easy for a lot of people to come in. So definitely a major focus there for you guys that I think is a smart idea. So then something else I wanted to ask about, and then I'll kind of let you touch on anything that you think is super important. Is so you guys are doing the borrowing and lending through the single-sided LPing, right? I like this, eliminate the risk of impermanent loss, which is great. What future plans do you guys have for other LP options? Are you guys thinking that through?
Other LP options more in the sense of like with impermanent loss and maybe higher
risk
like
reward? Traditional.
Yeah, okay.
Correct, yeah, like higher risk reward ones.
Okay, yeah, well, the underlying foundation will be this single-sided LPing without impermanent loss, so it's more like providing liquidity on a money market like Aave or Euler Finance, for example. This is going to be the underlying functionality of how we solve the margin trading. We are already looking into possibly other options. So one of the things that we are currently researching, for example, is if we can offer traders maybe a price execution guarantee. So that the prices that they set up when they set their stop loss or limit orders or something, that we might be able to guarantee those. Despite the fact that we then go to an external exchange and swap on, for example, Uniswap, where we cannot be sure which price exactly we are getting. And I think from the user perspective, from the trader perspective, that would be a really interesting feature. So now it comes to the fact, can we deliver that? And if so, how? And that's where we would look into, or where we are currently looking into the possibility of setting up a higher risk, higher reward, kind of price execution guarantee LP in between. That would then make sure that in case of negative slippage, they would cover the slippage for the trader, and in case of positive slippage, they would get it, and then they would offset potentially the risk through an options mechanism or through some external hedging. Still a lot of research should be done. And this is currently not the main focus. Our focus is really to ship the first version now, to get an initial testnet beta out so that we can gather some feedback and show people really what we are currently building and what kind of the direction is that we are taking. But the price execution guarantee would, for example, be one of the LP options where we see the potential for a different kind of risk reward setup. Beyond that, later there will also come a different form of a borrowing lending market, but that's not going to happen in the next few months, though. So I'm kind of hesitating to speak too much about it. But eventually, we also want to definitely make it possible that you can borrow, for example, against your LP positions, and then either use that to leverage up if you're comfortable with that, or use the yield that your LP position generates to pay off your loan again. But things like that are going to come a bit later. We got a lot planned, and one of the things we kind of have to take care of is that we don't spread ourselves too thin. We really want to make sure that we deliver and that we ship stuff. A lot of things are going to come step by step. And some things are going to come in an early version sooner, and then in the improved and final version more, where we see the vision of it a bit later, as soon as that's set up. But there's a lot coming.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, if you guys figure out the guaranteed rates, that'll be huge. I think that'll attract a lot of people. Very cool. You guys are, and yeah, you're right. You can't spread yourself too thin. You guys are already working on a ton already. So I love that you're thinking forward like that, but you're focused on what you can achieve currently, which is great. And then is there anything about your DEX that you want to highlight that you think is unique that you guys are bringing to the game?
Yeah, I mean, as we said before, the core focus are going to be great UX for the trader side, and then very interesting risk-reward profile for the LP side. And I think these are going to be the main focuses initially. But as soon as we have now, so we promised the early testnet version for January. So this is what we are really focused on getting out now. But as soon as that's done, for example, the next thing that we really want to get an early version out before the token sale even is going to be that you can trade from your phone, so that you can basically create a sub account and then delegate your phone, give your phone permissions to trade on the sub account, and then you can trade decentralized on a phone while you're on the go, and all of that without going through a complicated setup on your phone, or without exposing your main account to the risk of either your phone being lost or being compromised or something like that. So that's another really interesting thing that I'm looking forward to ship an early version and see what people think about it, because I believe it has a lot of potential and is going to allow for some really cool use cases.
Yeah, very cool. That answers one of my future questions about the wallet, was kind of the security aspect. But if you guys are working on a way that you can do it from your phone without compromising your main account, I think that kind of answers that, because that, while newer people coming into the space are not going to be so concerned as people who've been in the space for a long period of time about doing stuff on their phone. If you have a way to eliminate your phone being compromised and it affecting your overall position, that's super cool. So
yeah, absolutely. Like I'm one of the people, I would never put my main wallet or private keys on my phone. That's just, I think, not the right way to do things. So yeah, I can go a bit into how that's going to look like. Basically, you will have your main account on desktop that is hopefully protected by a hardware wallet, but then you might also want to trade on the go or from your phone. And the way this works then is basically that you create a sub account while you're on desktop with your main wallet, and then there's going to be an app for your phone that's going to set up a private key on your phone. And on your desktop side, again, you can then authorize that private key to trade in that sub account. So you can just transfer like $100 into the sub account, and then your phone basically has access to those $100, but also only in the context of trading. So it can execute trades, it can open trades, it can close trades, but it can, for example, withdraw or send the money somewhere else. That's going to be restricted to your main account. And that's basically the underlying architecture that we have in mind there, and how we think that we can find a good balance between ease of access and usability on the one side, but then also the security aspect, which we take very seriously. Like everything we build is something that we ourselves want to be comfortable using. So whenever it comes to aspects like security, this is the one thing where we are never going to cut corners or try and ship fast, but where we are always going to make sure that everything is really solid and in place.
yeah, very cool. Very cool. All right. So then, continuing on, let's kind of dig a little bit more into the wallet, right? So one thing that I was looking through and I thought was super cool was the portfolio management options from the wallet, which I kind of wanted like a breakdown on this, specifically how that's going to work. So like if someone has a position, they're able to, say it's like, this is just an example, right? So say they have a Uniswap V3 position, right? Are they able to manage that directly from their wallet, or are they able to adjust their positions as opposed to actually going to like that project's page? Is that kind of what you guys are going for with the portfolio management?
Yes and no. So when we talk about the wallet, it's important, I think, that we kind of differentiate the user groups. Because on the one hand, we see these newer users who are new to crypto and who want to get an easy and simple access. And there, really, our goal is to provide as many one-click options as possible. So one-click on-ramp some money, one-click invest some money and earn some yield, or one-click build a portfolio or a token position, or even like structured portfolios that other people set up for you or give you a template for, and things like that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, like we ourselves are pretty crypto native and experienced people, and we definitely also want to use this wallet. So on that side, it's going to be a smart contract wallet that really has all the functionality that we think crypto natives and power users really need and want. So Uni V3 positions is something that I haven't thought too much about yet, but it's an interesting idea. We'll definitely look into that as well. But in general, we like the long-term vision that we have there is that it's really going to be a modular smart contract wallet that you yourself can choose which modules to deploy, which modules to activate, and then there's going to be a nice and good UX UI on top of that will allow you then to interact with it.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I was just kind of trying to see like, the scope of where you guys were trying to aim in regards to like portfolio management, because you see some projects that are, trying to work towards, it's more of their like main focus, right? So it's a little bit easier for them to focus when that's really all they're thinking about, but they're kind of, trying to do all that where you can manage portfolios for like different platforms through one centralized area, as much as we hate the word centralized, but that's kind of what it is. So I was just kind of trying to see like the broad scope of really what you guys were aiming for there. And then very cool. So, and then my last real question, as far as the wallet goes, right? So how do you guys aim to compete and gain recognition, right? With MetaMask out there and Trust Wallet and Rabby, what's kind of your approach of being like, hey, you should use our wallet instead of all these other kind of established, already known players?
Yeah, that's a very good question and good point. I think I don't believe that we are gonna get a lot of people to switch over from what they have been using for years and what they felt secure with for years, and then they are just gonna drop that and jump onto a new wallet. That when it comes to banking and money and security, people are usually very sticky to what they know and what they have started to feel comfortable with over time. So we are not under the illusion that we are going to launch a new wallet tomorrow and everybody's going to swap from MetaMask to the Unstoppable wallet, and we are going to have 100% market share there from one day to the next, or something like that. We do hope that we will have this very intimate integration into the Unstoppable DEX and all the functionality that we have there, from spot trading and swapping to margin trading to LPing and earning yield on different yield products, to the on and off ramp that will be available through the wallet. And we hope that a lot of traders that are using the DEX will then also use the corresponding wallet with it and will learn to love it through that way. And then they might end up switching over time and start using this as their more primary wallet at some point. But at the same time, we also think, in general, we at Unstoppable, we are not trying to build something that's already out there or just build another copy of something. Like when I see some of the teams or protocols basically just forking whatever is hot at the time and then deploying it, and maybe even forgetting to exchange the logo or the pictures, that's really shitty, and that's not something at all what we are trying to do. We really try and establish or build where we see gaps in the current ecosystem and where we think we can add something of real value to the users and to the space in general. And that's where we see that easy access and bringing new people in. So I think when we look at a lot of the existing wallets today, it seems like a lot of them started to look at MetaMask and used MetaMask and then thought, that one thing or those two things are kind of annoying in MetaMask. Let's build a version of MetaMask that is a little bit better. So they iterate on that existing setup and primitive. We think it should be better if we take a step back and start from scratch and look at it. Okay, how would a good UX look like on a crypto wallet that allows someone like your mom and your dad or your non-techie friends, that they are able to use it and to set up an account? So more like the Web 2 flows that people are used to. Most people today are able to set up an email address for themselves or a Facebook account or a Twitter account or something. But if you ask them to set up a crypto wallet, there's a huge difference in the UX and the ease of how you can do that. And this is basically where we see, or where we want to fill that gap and build a product that's just better from the start and is a bit different in its approach, because we are starting more on a blank slate there, and then focus on how would that experience look like if it was good. And that's how we hope to capture a lot of the new market shares or grow the market overall and get new people in and allow them access. So these are basically the two roads, which I think are reasonable. That we have on the one side the deep integration into the DEX that will just make people use it, and then they will learn what's good about it, and they can let us know what they want to have improved. And over time, we capture some market share there. And then the probably bigger part, hopefully, is going to be that other side where we really bring new people into the space.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah. All right, so cool. So transitioning kind of on the same point, though, of ease of use, let's kind of start talking about your bridge / on-ramp. All right, so you guys are, so the first question a lot of people ask of on-ramping and all this stuff in the bridge is the liquidity issues, right? How do you capture the liquidity so that, it's deep liquidity, people can actually use it? What you guys are aiming to do is you're aiming to solve the liquidity issues by working with regulated banks, right? That with the token exchange, right, they'll have a token that's like a one-for-one swap, can be redeemed, transfer back and forth from the bank. All right, so this kind of fits in. Can you hear me? Sorry, kind of cut out there for a second. This kind of fits into the CBDC narrative, and I'm not saying that's what it is, but that's what some people will view this as, right? Oh, a bank issues a stable coin. Yeah, I can swap it, but they're going to view that as a CBDC. So how do you guys counter that narrative and actually pitch what this really is as not a CBDC?
Yeah, so if today you want to bridge the gap from the crypto world into the real world and fiat world, there really isn't a way to get around the fiat money and the centralized entities that control the money today. Now, philosophically, we all would wish that it's different and that you could go buy your coffee directly with ETH or Bitcoin or a decentralized coin or token. But for now, as long as the real world runs on fiat, there has to be this kind of bridge. And whether it's like at the token side where you accept that centralized entity that is in control of the money, or one step further on the bank account side where you accept that the bank or the central bank is in control of that money. If you want to play in their system, at one point you have to take that step into their system. So if we have a chance to go fully decentralized and go with a completely decentralized alternative, we would always take it. But for now, we think it's not there. You can't really buy your coffee with ETH just yet. So until that is, we have to play a bit in their sandbox and take that step in. And that's basically where we are trying to build that seamless integration, at least, so that you can get in really easily, really quickly, in and out. It's under your control. And then you always have the option to immediately also swap into a decentralized token or asset on the crypto side. And then on the banking side, on the other hand, it will be a bank account just like your regular bank account that you're using today, and where you also have to trust and accept that centralized entity that's in control of your money, your balance, and how much inflation it receives and things like that. So yeah, as long as it's fully backed by fiat and is the bridge into fiat, at some point you have to take that step. For us, it's important that we get that feature out there that allows people to have the seamless integration from the decentralized and self-custodial world into that more centralized but real world right now, and that we make that as easy and seamless as possible.
Yeah, cool. All right, so if you can't come to terms with, if you can't work out a deal with the banks that enables decentralization, obviously there is an aspect of centralization there with the banks, and that could launch into a whole nother conversation about centralization itself or whatever, and the needs there that some people say you don't need it, but in reality you're going to need some form. But if you can't come to terms with a bank that actually enables you to do what you want to do, what's your backup plan to gain the liquidity needed for the on ramps?
So at Unstoppable, we always hope for the best but plan for the worst. It's kind of one of our core philosophies. So far, the initial conversations that we have had with banks are that they are very interested in what we are trying to do. And especially since a lot of the banks kind of missed the whole crypto part and they don't really have a strategy in place for themselves. So basically, when we are talking to them right now, we are offering them a way that they don't just build a bridge for us and for the degens on the DEX and crypto side, but we basically enable them to build the infrastructure so they can offer access to crypto to their clients. And that has been received really well so far. So initial feedback is looking very promising. And I hope that we can go that route and that we will find not one, but multiple partners. So A, that we will have redundancy there. And then B, because banks are still very regional. So in different parts of the world, you will need different partners if you want to service that world and the bank accounts in that jurisdiction. So this is going to be plan A, that we find multiple partners there and set up with them. And the way it looks like right now, this is hopefully going to work. But if that doesn't work, we are also looking into alternatives. We are talking, we have a call set up with both market makers and people on big companies in the FX space, and they are also interested in seeing how this new technology called blockchain could play into their realm. So that will offer us also some possibilities that we go through them if we don't find the direct banking partners integration. And then if all of that fails, we haven't spent too much time on that yet, but we already had some creative ideas. Like, for example, in some of the games that are out there, you can buy in-game currencies and then they are traded on secondary markets. And so if we absolutely have to, then we will do some serious out-of-the-box thinking and creative problem solving. And maybe you will not on-ramp or off-ramp, but maybe you will buy or sell an unstoppable skin for your app based on an in-game currency that happens to trade around 1-to-1 maybe, or something like that. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, it looks like we are going to find a pretty good solution more on the plan A side.
Yeah, that's cool. It's got to be a good feeling that you guys are getting kind of positive traction on the original plan, which is, going to be huge because people are, as we onboard more and more users, right? People are going to want, some, like you said earlier, comfort, right? People are comfortable with their banks, right? So if their bank is comfortable with it, and they, and it enables them to kind of move into this space, I think that's a good bridge, like, to build. So it's cool that you guys are getting some traction there. All right, cool. So let's kind of talk about just Unstoppable Pro and all the features that you guys are doing there. You guys are going to have a credit card and some other things. Do you just want to kind of give an overview of all the different features that Unstoppable Pro is going to offer?
Yeah, that is still a bit out. So I assume that a lot of that is going to change as well. Initially, we really wanted to make sure that we have this separation and that it's clear to the community that we are looking at these two almost kind of separate markets and user types. One, the really new people. And for example, the first version of the DEX that we are building right now and that we are going to launch a testnet probably this week is focused on building a really simple and intuitive UI and UX. The idea there is that we give or we build that what like 95% of people need all of the time. But then we also agree or know that there is some power users and some real crypto natives out there that have a slightly different set of requirements maybe and things that they are looking for. And this is more where we then see, for example, we're definitely going to add a second UI to the DEX at a later point that is focused on the power users, where we will have different features, where we have a lot more advanced features and order types, and where we will allow, for example, also where we offer easy and a good API that allows automated trading. And that's something, for example, that centralized exchanges do rather well, and decentralized exchanges have kind of failed to do so far. It is all possible, but it's usually kind of complicated. And that's also another route where we see, okay, if we build a really good a really good API, that will give the power users a different kind of access to the decentralized trading and markets that also doesn't exist out there quite like this yet. So we are aware of these two user groups, and we will try over time to cater to both of them and to really build a good UI UX and good feature set for both of them. And yeah, for the credit card that you mentioned, for example, this is gonna tie together like these separate almost products from Unstoppable. On the one side we have the DEX, and on the other side we have the bridge with the banking side, and we really I really want to get to the point where I can trade on my phone or earn some yield on my phone and then pay for my breakfast and my coffee with my phone, but with the yield or the returns from the trade I just made on a decentralized and self-custodial way. That's kind of the vision where we want to get to.
Yeah, very cool. And I think there's a lot of people out there that would love that if they never have to take their money off chain and can do everything they need to do. I think that is an end state for a lot of people that they would love to see. So very nice. All right, so let's kind of transition here and talk about kind of the UND token and then your token model there. Specifically, I like that all your team and partner allocations are in the form of ES-UND, which could be obviously staked or vested to turn into regular UND. But do you want to kind of talk through the tokenomics of your system, and then also once you're done with that, kind of talk about you guys mentioned it a few times throughout your paper is the safety module and the mechanics there?
Yeah, sure. Maybe we start with the latter first, because one of the things we always said is we are not just gonna launch a token and sell a token. So we've launched or sold a token, and initially there was kind of a problem also because we know that at some point we will have to raise some funds. So far, Unstoppable is completely self-funded. Unfortunately, none of us are millionaires or billionaires, though. So it was clear that sooner or later the money would run out and we have to raise some funds. But at the same time, we also said, we are not going to launch a token that is useless. And we're also not going to sell out to some VCs just for the sake of it. With the DEX, then basically we saw, okay, as an LP, I don't want to be exposed to the risk if some of the liquidations on the DEX go wrong, for example. And that's, again, where things kind of came together. And we said, okay, this is now the place where a native token has an actual use case and is needed. And it makes sense to have a native token that sits in between the LPs and the DEX functionality. And in case something does go wrong, then the native token holders can take some of that risk. And that's basically where the safety module will be. The safety module will sit in between LPs and protect them and the liquidation engine, because liquidations is basically the one thing that could go wrong, how the DEX could lose LPs' money. If a trader's position loses more money than they put in as collateral and the liquidation doesn't occur, then we would lose the LP's money. And that should never happen. That's why this is one of the core focuses when we are building this. We already have a few redundancies in place there. So we are not just relying on one thing going right, but we have multiple layers of backups there. But then as an additional layer and safety for the LPs, we will have the safety module. And this is kind of similar of what you can see Aave doing with their safety module. So it's going to be a place where native token holders can stake the native token and probably some ETH with that. And then they will be rewarded for underwriting the risk by getting a part of the fees of the platform that will go to them in the form of real yield as ETH or USDC. And if ever all of our liquidation redundancies fail and we actually lose more than the trader's collateral and it would go to the LPs, then the safety module will sit in between there. It will take the loss and we can make sure that the LPs are made whole again. And this is kind of the most important part in the entire system, because without LPs, we don't have the margin trading and we don't have the borrowing and lending, and we can't really offer the functionality that we are looking at. So making sure that the LPs are safe is number one priority, but it also solves this issue for us, that now there's an actual need and use case for a native token that is not just a governance token and not just a security token, but an actual utility token, has real utility, underwrites the risk, is rewarded with some real yield, and will sit in between the LPs and the risk. And regarding the token design, we spend a lot of time researching and discussing that, both within the team, but also it was really interesting that we had some really good discussions with some of the community members already. And there we went into really detailed discussions on what we liked about different projects and token designs and what they did well and what they didn't do so well, in our opinion. And that's kind of how we ended up at this dual token model, where it's not two completely separate tokens, but underlying it's kind of the same, except that one is the regular UND token, and that's gonna be the one that is just a regular ERC20 token. And then there's basically gonna be that escrowed version. That's kind of, it's not locked, because we think we want to give our holders the optionality to transfer that or to sell it OTC if they want to. But at the same time, it cannot be dumped on the community and on the token holders directly, because it is a different token. It is the escrowed version of the token. And to vest it into the regular token, you then have to lock it up and vest it for 12 months. Or you can just keep it as the escrowed version and use it like this in the Unstoppable ecosystem. And the first use case is going to be the safety module, where you can stake for some real yield. But we already see that later on there's probably going to be a lot more use cases as Unstoppable grows and the products are rolled out step by step. Then there's probably going to be a lot more utility to the UND token than initially.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I like the model that you guys have currently. I think it's a fair model, and it's well thought out, with the public sale being the only thing that, is liquid on the market, and then, all your partners and everything, being all your investors being protected from the dumps there. And then I'm looking forward to your future plans for utility. So I do think it's a good model and well thought out. So.
Cool, thank you. That was really important for us to have something that is fair and that is good for the community, because we do see ourselves as a very community-focused project. We have been around in crypto and have been part of other communities for a long time. And some of them are great, and some of them do things really well. And other times you get dumped on by VCs, and that's not so great. And that's not something we want to do. So I'm glad we like it. And so far the feedback has been very positive.
Yeah. Nobody wants to get dumped on by VCs. I've been part of that before, for sure. So, all right, very cool. So let's kind of transition here to your governance, right? So what are you guys working towards in terms of the DAO that you guys actually think will work properly, right? Because, there's the argument that no one has really pulled off like a true DAO model. Some people hate the term DAO. So what is your kind of guys' focus on being able to make that work and actually make this a community-driven project?
So first of all, we do think that in an initial phase, in a young project, the DAO process is just too slow to really be agile and to allow fast development and fast decisions when they are needed. So that's why we said, okay, we are going to target what we call progressive decentralization. So initially it will be the team making the decision and building the initial vision and setting it up. Of course, always guided by input from the community, and we hope to have a lot of discussions on the different aspects and what we can and should build next. But initially, it will be focused by the community. But as you can see in our tokenomics already, we are distributing more than 57% to the community, and the goal is to get to a point where we are no longer the guiding or the executing forces here, but where there's a lot of This is still a bit out, so we don't have a full final functioning model completely ready yet. And I also believe that, there's a lot of people have, as you said, a lot of people have tried to get some form of DAO or decentralized governance working. Some things are working well, other things are not working well. I don't pretend like we got the golden solution that solves everything. But a few key aspects that I think are important and that I would want to implement over time here is, for example, that one, it's not just one vote per one token. I think there should be a weighting based on how active you are, how much value you contribute to the community during the discussions about what could be done, how it should be done. I don't like the models where some people can, sometimes just borrow the token on Aave or something for the time of the vote, and then swing the vote in their favor because they believe this is the right thing for themselves, for the whales. Something like that is definitely something we want to discourage as much as possible. So this is one of the aspects that I would want to try and solve differently. Another aspect is that we have seen a lot of governance fatigue in other projects and other DAOs. If there's just too many decisions and too many small decisions, then people just get tired of having to vote every other day on some stuff that isn't really that important to them. So on that side, I see more of a council of the core community members and of the really active contributors that really want to be involved there, that they are going to be the ones that prepare not just the proposal itself and the discussions around it, but then also provide the information that is relevant for people to quickly get an overview in a really good and easy to digest format. So basically, if you want to inform yourself about a decision, that should be really quick and simple to get the pros and cons listed as objectively as possible, and then educate yourself about the question at hand, so you can make an informed decision yourself, or you can delegate to somebody you trust and somebody who you've seen to make decisions similar to your core beliefs. And then the other thing we're still discussing around that, but one of the things might be that for a lot of the smaller decisions, we would more target a veto-based model. So that basically if the core community council comes to a decision, then the proposal will pass by default unless a majority of the other token holders veto it. And I think that would solve a lot of the governance fatigue problems that people need to get involved, even if it's smaller decisions, so that there's going to be like a pass by default for the smaller decisions that can still be vetoed. If a majority is against it, then they definitely should be able to do that, but it has to be streamlined. And again, it kind of feeds back into this overall vision of Unstoppable, that we want to make it easy and good to use, so that we ourselves like to use it, and that it still is as true as possible to the decentralization and self-custodial way of things.
Yeah, very nice, good approach. So all right, cool. Appreciate that. And then I guess kind of Elsa, this is where you'll probably come
exactly
in, since this is kind of your cup of tea. Let's talk a little bit about partnerships and growth, right? So current integrations and partnerships, and then kind of your future plans there. Who are you talking to that you can tell us about, or what are you guys working on there?
So as of right now, we are currently integrated within the Chainlink ecosystem, as we've been using the automation and price feed for our GLP auto compounder. And we were also looking into our use cases with the Fair Funding platform and our DEX, which is not yet to be found, I believe. We're also built upon Alchemix, and they helped us with the grant proposal for the Fair Funding platform. And we're talking currently with the Arrakis Finance team, Off-Ramp XYZ, and Premia Finance also. Or is it just Premia? I think it's just Premia. And for the future plans, I'm going to need more clarity on the question. Is it regarding the partnerships?
Yeah. Who are you guys? Yeah. What other future plans are you guys looking at for partnerships to kind of help drive adoption?
As of right now, we don't have a specific protocol that we would like to partner with or integrate with. So far, we're still looking every day in what's being done in the DeFi space, especially in the Arbitrum ecosystem. We highly believe into Arbitrum Odyssey, and it's always nice to have other protocols building around and seeing what's happening. But as of right now, we're talking with every project that we wanted to talk to. So that's where we are.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Yeah, there's a lot of good projects building on Arbitrum, and the few that you've named are obviously huge to be working with. So that's awesome. That's got to feel good for you guys to be getting that kind of traction. And then also on the partnerships and growth, right? The need for mass adoption for this space is obviously going to be the corporate and institutional adoption. So what kind of interest have you seen from those corporate and institutional entities on what you're building?
On this one, I'm gonna let Nick answer since he has been handling this with one of our very dedicated community member. So
Yeah, I guess the question goes almost into two parts. Like on the one side, we had like very early on already some interest from VCs and some juicy checks that they waved under our noses if we only give them a significant percentage of tokens that they could then dump on the community later. So we decided not to take them up on that offer, because we really want to be a community-driven and a community-first project. So I guess in a month or two, when it comes to the token sale, we'll know if that was a smart decision. But either way, it was the right decision, and we've been good with it. So there has been interest from that side. They see the potential, and they kind of know what kind of numbers exchanges are pulling, for example. And they wanted to get a piece of that early on. But then on the other side is what we already talked about a bit earlier, the interest from the banking sector, and especially the FX side of things. FX market is huge, and on-chain we still don't really have a lot of that. Also, a lot of the current player in the off-chain FX ecosystem, they don't really have blockchain and the DeFi space as a competitor on their radar yet. So we were lucky to have some connections there, and we got some introductions, and this seems to be a very interesting conversation that's going to evolve as well. And we'll see how quickly they realize that their current business model might not be around for that long, given how much traction we see with a lot of the on-chain stuff. So that's going to be also interesting to see what's going to happen there.
Yeah, very cool. A lot of exciting things going for you guys. And then kind of my last question is just, you've already touched on it a little bit. You got the beta coming out I was going to talk about the roadmap. So when can we expect to see that? And then what's going to be the process for people being able to actually be beta testers?
for the beta version, we said it was going to come out in January, so it's going to be really in the coming days for sure. After this, the fair funding platform is going to come in February. We aim for the token sale to happen around March. And then later on, I think we'll see how it happens, but we will respect those deadlines already.
Yeah, very cool. All right, I'm excited for the beta to see kind of it all come together, what you guys are working on, because you got a ton going here. But it sounds like you've got the right team and the right people working on this stuff, and a lot of things are going well for you. So very cool. All right, well, that kind of wraps up my questions. I just like to kind of let you guys have the last word, and then give your final pitch for everything and what you want the community to know.
Sure. If what we are planning to do sounds interesting to the people, to the listeners, then we would love for you guys to come over to our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord channels, and let us know which parts are the most exciting to you. Beta is gonna launch soon, and anybody can get access to that and give it a try and give us feedback. As we said, or as you also said, there's a lot to come, so there's going to be a few iterations. Not everything is going to launch on day one, but we definitely are going to make sure that we ship regularly and as fast as possible, and then roll out all the features that we have planned step by step. And we would love for you guys to come with us and to help us make centralized exchanges obsolete.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, I think that's kind of an end state that we'd all like to see. So, very cool. All right, thanks. I really appreciate you guys coming on. Elsa, I'm glad we were able to get this together. And I really appreciate you coming on and talking about the project. Thanks so much. It means a lot.
Thank you for inviting us. It was very great talk, great questions.